So, thank you all for coming to our biennial celebration. We were unable to celebrate our first anniversary, and so I'm very glad that we were able to get some people together to celebrate this one. To commemorate the occasion, I have prepared some words. Comrades, friends, people of the Keweenaw, on November 20th, 2020, I created an online space with the intention of making an opportunity for leftists in the area to socialize, discuss theory, and find each other. From those beginnings, I could not have dreamed that this simple space would become what it is today. Over that time, our ranks have grown incredibly, over 250 strong last I checked. On August of 2021, after many weeks of drafting and deliberation, the charter of the Keweenaw Socialists was signed, establishing a constitution to define our purpose and guide us in action. From that constitution, we, the Keweenaw Socialists, did declare and continue to declare that all humans are equal and have value that is intrinsic and non-quantifiable by way of economic output, that advances must be made in order to ensure an equitable quality of life for all persons without dependence on the exploitation of people or natural resources, that governing authority is derived exclusively from the will of the people for whom that authority applies, and that any governing authority that does not have the will of the people is wholly illegitimate, and that all people are entitled to the fruits of their labor and freedom from exploitation. Furthermore, we assert that the prosperity of humankind is inextricably linked to the well-being of the environment, and our continued survival depends on a reciprocity with those natural systems. That capitalist society is divided between two classes, those who subsist through their labor and those whose life depends on the labor of others through ownership. As long as those two classes exist, they will be locked in perpetual conflict as their desires are fundamentally antagonistic. That our present society has been built on the interconnected forces of colonialism, imperialism, and white supremacy, both through direct subjugation and through systematically oppressive policy. That humanity cannot be free until all oppressed peoples are liberated, and that the ending of global capitalist systems and their subsequent replacement with that of socialism is not only morally imperative, but also achievable and absolutely necessary for our continued habitation of this planet. On November of 2021, 1 year after the inception of this organization, we created our first chapter organization, the Keweenaw Socialists at Michigan Technological University, which is quickly becoming the largest political organization on campus. In the intervening time, we have worked hard to spread the knowledge on the evils of capitalism and the necessity of socialism, to educate our members and members of the community on the history of workers' struggles and struggles of liberation, on the skills to survive, thrive, and defend oneself and one's community, and work to improve the lives of ourselves and our community through mutual aid and dual power. I am in awe of what we have accomplished in this short time, and I am deeply honored to have served as your chairman throughout it. We should all remember what we have accomplished and where we have come from and be proud. It is easy to get wrapped up in the present issues and miss the forest for the trees, and it's good to take a moment sometimes to look at where we are in the grander scheme. That does not mean, however, that we should rest on our laurels. The resources, knowledge, and membership that we have gained over these 2 years afford us the ability and indeed the duty to take more and greater action in pursuit of our goals. We have done great things and have greater things that we have still yet to do. The forces of capital grow ever more restless. We see all around us the imperial leviathan lashing out around the world, seeking fresh markets to exploit and devour. As the beast grows more hungry, it becomes more desperate as it begins to rot away on the inside. We know that if the leviathan is unable to satisfy its hunger externally, it will begin to eat away at itself internally. We stand in the belly of this leviathan, in the midst of its death throes, and must bring about its final destruction for the sake of those it would hurt externally as much as for the sake as it would hurt internally, before it takes us all down with it. The contradictions of capitalism ensure that its inevitable demise. Let us be sure that it does not ensure our demise as well. This leviathan belches noxious fumes into the atmosphere and drips toxic sludge into our waterways and upon the earth. As long as the leviathan lives, it will continue to render this planet uninhabitable. Even yet, were we to vanquish this beast tomorrow, its harm would not cease. Damage has been done that we know cannot be undone. And our climate is on a course that cannot be entirely avoided. We are somewhat lucky in the Keweenaw that we will be spared the worst of these impending disasters, but many will not be. As inhabitants of a climate refuge, we have a duty both to be good stewards of this land and to be welcoming to those who are displaced from areas which experience the worst of what climate change will bring us. We must not allow capital to destroy this land in pursuit of rarefied homes built for maximum profit, nor can we allow them to make a walled garden of this land, reserved as a paradise for the wealthy alone. We can and should make the Keweenaw a paradise for all who seek it. There is a rich heritage of socialism and radical labor activism in the Keweenaw, which we seek to honor and carry on. Big Andy Clements, proud member of the Socialist Party of America, members of the Industrial Workers of the World, the Finnish Socialists, and the Finnish Socialist Federation, Tiomies, the radical newspaper just across the portage in Hancock. This is the history of the Keweenaw. We do not seek to bring socialism to the Keweenaw for the first time, but return it from its lengthy exile. Capital has taken a great deal from this land and the people who inhabit it. From its arrival with white settlers, capital stole this land from the people who lived on it so it could be worked for profit. Capital dug up the ground and cleared the forest to be shipped to somewhere else. And for what? What did the Keweenaw and its people gain from this? A near eradication of old-growth forests, pollution of its waterways, and mansions of the former lumber and copper barons dotting the hilltops. This is what remains of the wealth extracted from this land. And what of the working folk, the ones who actually mined the ore and cleared the timber? The working people were promised a new life, a better life by capital, and for their trouble were worked to the bone, trapped in debt until death, making money for the bosses. We know what happened to those who stood up to capital and demanded the bare necessities of safety, living wages, the 8-hour day. The Great Copper Strike of 1913-1914, the Soberville Affair, the Italian Hall Massacre, the deployment of the National Guard. So where does this leave us today? Though it's not quite as clear as it was in the days of the copper and lumber barons, the forces of capital have not allayed in their extraction of wealth and exploitation of people in the Keweenaw. Massive companies have come to replace local businesses and monopolize our needs, again, taking wealth from this place and its people. Those things which we need to survive, food, water, power, housing, are held for ransom by those with capital. We are forced to work so that our bosses can get rich so that we might survive. The workers must seek to throw off the chains of capital so that freedom and democracy can return to this land. The Keweenaw, by rights, belongs to its workers. To that I say, workers of the Keweenaw, workers of the Upper Peninsula, workers of the world, unite. I believe a singing of the Internationale would be appropriate at this point.